The call to the post means it's time once again for our Triple Crown show, the Belmont Stakes Show. Doug Miles along with Don Henderson, and that can only mean our friend Pete the Prophet joining us from up in New York today as he went up and picked up his press pass for the Belmont Stakes Saturday, so we'll get his thoughts on that in just a minute. But Don, good to talk to you again. I know we did a show on Monday with our friend Jeffrey on the NHL, but do the horse racing tonight.
Well, I think it's going to be a very, very interesting race, 150th anniversary, and as I said to you before we started the program, and maybe Pete's going to be able to give us a little insight, I have seen many of the news shows throughout the day today and early evening. I have not heard any anticipated attendance for the 150th anniversary, which is really a giant step, 150th anniversary of the Belmont Stakes. But Pete, have you heard anything? And I give Doug a chance to introduce you first.
Pete the Prophet, our good friend who has been with us all along on Triple Crown races the last several years, and a childhood friend who lives about a mile away from Belmont, joining us. But yeah, go ahead, Pete. We haven't heard anything about, I know when the Prophet, American Pharoah was going for the Triple Crown, they were going to cap it at 90,000, but I haven't heard any statistics this year. Have you?
And that's exactly what they did last year and this year, and what they're going to do going forward with the Belmont Stakes, as well as what they did for the Travers last year. They capped that, I think, at 50. They're no longer going to have anything more than 90 at the racetrack. So all the seats are sold out. Pretty close to all the general admission is sold out. You know, I don't even think you can buy it there. I think you got to buy it. You got to get tickets before you even go down there. Same thing with parking. They've made it ever since that disaster about 5 years ago. They've just capped it so they can do it. And what's funny about that year that it was a disaster, there was only 10,000 more people that year, but the railroad, there was problems, the bathroom was backing up, the facility's old as it is, and it only gets used basically once a year like that. So there were no test runs for what happened about 5 years ago.
Well, it's interesting because when you talk about Belmont, I really did not think they were going to, approach that 90,000 because, let's face it, the first two races, the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness, as we talked about it on a couple of shows, really there was no race. So I was a little surprised that even though it's a Triple Crown affair and even though it's in New York, I'm surprised that you say there's going to be 90,000 there.
Yeah, since they've already sold all that, there really is very little left. They'll definitely get the max of that. And I think that, a couple of years ago when American Pharoah ran, there was just so much more interest in the horse and the fact that it was, 40 years, whatever the distance was between Triple Crown. So everybody wanted to be there or watch it. This horse didn't have quite the same buzz. And also this horse, after his Preakness race, showed a little hole or two. And so I don't know if people aren't quite as excited. I'm not getting the same buzz at all as with American Pharoah. Back in the day when Secretariat and Affirmed and those guys, they ran as 2- and 3-year-olds, and you got to know them as fans. This one just came along out of the blue. Both races are in the flop, so who knows? And there's an absolute possibility that they could be a little off on Saturday with the forecast of some late afternoon storms, but that's been changing every day.
Doug?
Do they charge more, Pete? I know it used to be $2, whatever it was, for general admission. Do they jack up the prices now for the Belmont?
Yeah, I believe it's $30 now to get into the grandstand, and even though at Belmont now it's one price gets in all, they do for that race. They divide a clubhouse and a grandstand, and the clubhouse is $50 for that day. Parking's $20 or $30. They do well. Way back, they never got any more than the $2 and $5.
No, it was always cheap, even for the big races.
That was it.
Right.
Well, and because since there was never a possibility of a Triple Crown, nothing ever happened. And then finally, whatever it was, I'd say, 12, 15 years ago, when all of a sudden there was a rash of horses that won the first two and went into the third. They got a bunch of big crowd. I believe the biggest was War Admiral, about 120,000, and they started.
You're really going back now.
I'm going way back.
Don was there at that race. He did the pre-race show.
Actually, not War Admiral. The name escapes me, but he was also a Baffert horse going for the Triple Crown, and so they've had he's just recent. I think since they capped it at 90 is when they started raising the prices, and they pretty much know that. And I don't know what they got last year without a Triple Crown on the line. So, and back in the day, when they would get the 90,000 for the Belmont Stakes, they would end up getting, if there was not a Triple Crown, they'd end up getting 40 or 50,000.
Yeah, right.
Right. Which is the exact same reason. One of the reasons why they stopped coming here for the Breeders' Cup is because no one came.
Yeah.
It wasn't that big of a deal here.
Well, Pete, two of the big things as we look back, 17 times a horse that has won the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness going into the Belmont didn't win. 17 on 17 occasions. That's pretty interesting. And also the fact that we talk about the 90,000 that are going to be in attendance in the total racing between Saratoga and all the other tracks in New York. Boy, when you talk about racing, and we've talked about how it's going up and down, a fifth of all the money spent on horse racing in the United States is in New York.
Yeah, and that's it's amazing how much money, even though there's no on-track attendance to speak of at all, other than these big race days. But all the money, comes from this area, and that's a testament to the people that are here and the fact that how they want to play the race. And I'm just thinking that this race, there's been plenty of horses that have come into this race that look like they couldn't lose. I mean, even when Real Quiet came here, he had won both races especially the Preakness, very impressively. Now, he just got caught at the wire, and I've always given you my opinion of that, which is that the gods do not want a name like Real Quiet, or I should say, the gods do not want a horse that was not going to perform after the Belmont Stakes. And Real Quiet, I believe, never won a race again. It's got to be a great horse, and Big Brown ran in it, and
right.
He fell apart in the Belmont. He pulled up, so there've been plenty of them. He had some really, really bad jockey rides also in this race. Stuart Elliott, really they were running after him, and they were kind of causing him problems, and he moved too soon. Probably, what's going to happen possibly with Justify tomorrow. So it's a very interesting race and a whole bunch of circumstances coming up.
Well, Pete, at least you moved up from War Admiral to a president that you're talking about 203 with Big Brown. And, of course, Big Brown is the only horse that was incapable because of injury to finish the Belmont. And he went off at 3 to 10, something like that.
Real low.
Yeah, 3 to 10. And so it's going to be very interesting to see what happens tomorrow or Saturday.
Well, especially, when you get a horse like Justify, who, this is his sixth race now only, and he started in February 18th. So, for normal, that's a lot of racing. You don't see that for very young, very good 3-year-olds. And if you're looking at, let's say, the buyer numbers, for example, normally you see a horse that's improving into this race. And this one took a really big hit last time out. And I understand that Mike Smith, after the race, said he could have won by more. I call no on that one. He was spent and down to the wire, and maybe he was not riding him out completely at the finish, but that just made, a few feet difference. He was tired in that race, and it's going to be very tough. Now, he was run with that race. I'm not sure what's going to happen tomorrow. There's only a couple of horses that could possibly go with him. I'm sure Bob Baffert did not want to have Post 1 for the race, and he's got it. So what happens then is the horse goes out to lead on the inside, and then someone comes along on the outside of him and kind of pushes him along. Horse gets a little bit anxious. In the Preakness, he was on the outside of Good Magic. On Saturday he'll be on the inside.
Doug?
Does that make a big difference in the Belmont, Pete? The number one, you get so much room there in that track anyway, and so long a race. That's not really a big deal, right, to be in the number one post?
No. In other races, no one wants the rail because if you break badly, you've been, you're dead. And at a mile and a half, and with the early pace kind of slow, it doesn't make a difference. It does make a difference though when you have a speed horse. You don't, and there's other speed horses going after you, because if you got to go to the front and you're on the inside, you got to go. Like very rarely will someone let them, because the horse on the inside gets anxious.
Mm-hmm.
And Justify at the moment looks like he's very rateable and stuff, but he's got to be up around there, and so they get anxious. I remember when Cigar ran, even though he was a closer, the jockeys rode him. There was one, I cannot remember his name, who rode the horse that ended up. He didn't win the race, but he basically cost the horse the race by sitting outside of him and kind of making him run faster and quicker than he wanted to at that point of the race. So it's going to be a jockey race tomorrow. These people don't want. These jockeys are very prideful, and they don't want this stuff just to, someone just to walk on and take the race. So it'll be a really interesting pace factor in this race.
Well, Baffert was extremely happy with the first two races because he pulled, the number 7 post position in both. So he was extremely happy with that. So this time he's going to have to fight through from the number 1 post position. And you talked about Smith, the jockey, had a marvelous piece, question and answer piece, in Sunday's paper in the Post. I don't know if you had a chance to see it. Talk about how he rates, all the way he rates horses and what he does, and I thought it was a very interesting piece in the Post. Whether you saw it.
And he's such a master, and one of those guys, almost like Andre Agassi, who takes his training very seriously. He's
right.
A regimented guy, and he works out really hard. I mean, he's 50-something, and he's still a master at his craft. Big money Mike, and you want him on your horse. So he won't fluster like some of the other ones have in these races. There've been some very big Ken Tasomo, but real quiet who opened up too soon. I gave you the Stuart Elliott one. There've been some other ones that and he won't fluster that way. I'm just thinking that this horse might be going the other way. The fact that the horse that ran second, the Bravazzo, the Lucas horse, who dropped back on the turn like he was dead and was 5th at the 8th pole, and then for him to come on to run second shows me, and that's usually a sign that the horses in front of him are coming back to him. It's not a close; they're coming back to him, and that's what happened in that race. And off of that, I don't like him on Saturday.
Doug, you don't like Bravazzo?
I don't like.
No, he doesn't like Justify.
Just okay.
And I really don't like Bravazzo. I know he's going to take some money because, and off of that race and his other races, he looks like a little bit of a hanger. Even when he wins by a nose and a neck, and I don't like that kind of horse in a race like this. I think he's a step slow. The big horse to talk about, and the problem, which is why horse racing is such a great game, is that Hofburg.
I was going to say Hofburg is the second favorite right now. Yeah,
second favorite. We had talked about him before the Derby. I really liked him in the Derby. Got hampered. Well, first of all, sloppy track, but hampered with a really bad trip, shuffled back, losing all shot, and then made a really nice close and pulled up great. But the problem with him is he is the sharp. Everybody's talking about this horse. There is no surprises here. Everyone's on him. This horse might be 5-2, 3-1 in this race, and so there's no value in the race, even though he's got a really, really big shot to win it.
He's 9-2 at the early run today. That's what the line was as of this afternoon.
Yeah. I think he'll probably come down a couple of points. And for a horse like that, I'm just not thinking that's the. I mean, he was 27-1 in the Derby, so to all of a sudden finish 7th, beating 10 lengths, and then come back and be 7-2 or whatever he might be is not a good value. You might have the win of the race, but it's hard to play that off the value.
Well, you sort of mentioned Dwayne Lucas a couple of moments ago, and it's a big story for Dwayne Lucas as well. 15 Triple Crown wins, which puts him in a very select group. And at the same time, he's 82 years old, so they're looking to win.
Oh yeah, they're definitely looking to win with this, and they have it's an interesting race for him, and I know that he's the guy. You hear all week he's there at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, and Baffert shows up a little bit later, and he's got people working for him, and Dwayne's stable is not what it used to be. There are now super trainers like obviously Todd Pletcher, who's got a couple in the race, and the other one who will take money is Gronkowski, not only because of the name but because Chad Brown is training him, and he's another one. Coming from overseas. Now that's not from Saudi Arabia, but still coming here. Never been on the dirt. 4 races on the synthetic and 2 on the grass. And that's going to be a tough order for him also. But he'll take some money because of the name and the trainer alone.
Doug?
Yeah, you mentioned Pletcher, 2 horses, and just reading up on one of them the other day, a nice article in the Post about Vino Rosso. I guess some guy from Queens owns that horse,
yes.
Right?
Yes, the one that owned Uncle Mo, and he was the darling of the racing back then. He was a great interview. He's a really good guy, really into horse racing, and he's a horse tomorrow that will be really interesting to watch. He's probably, if I'm going to pick one now, I'm going to probably go in that direction. His Wood Memorial was awesome, and it was a good pace that day. He also has run his first 2 races. He was right up close to the race, right up to the pace. So he's very tractable. J.R. Velasquez on board, so he'll be right in that race, and that's the race that Rapoli wants to win very badly. That's his one race that he wants.
So to get to the bottom line, that is your pick to win the Belmont Stakes.
I'm going to take Vin Rosso. I would probably go Hofburg, but I have to give value to my loyal fans, and there are so many of them out there. I have to give them value, and I cannot take Hofburg at that price. So I'm going to do a little Vin Rosso, Hofburg, and I say no Triple Crown, even though a name like Justify is worthy of the Triple Crown greats from the past.
Very good. Like the Prophet's picks. I'm kind of tending to agree with you, Pete. Just watching the Preakness that last time, it did look like he was running out of gas. So yeah, I'd like to see it, but I don't think he's going to do it either. So I'll look at Hofburg. I like what I read about him. I like what you said about him. So I'll go with Hofburg.
And then if you want the feel good story, you can look at Dale Roman's free drop Billy, who Dale Romans apparently saved someone's life at Shea Stadium the other day when he gave someone a Heimlich maneuver.
Really?
So if you're going for a divine intervention, you can go with Dale Romans.
Good reporting, Pete. I did not hear that story.
Doug, let me tell you something. Let me tell you what I have. I have people at Citi Field. I have people all over the place. I have people everywhere I go, and they call and they let me know what's going on. And I know, and as a matter of fact, that was his second time he saved someone's life. So if you want a little divine intervention, free drop Billy. He's a little slow. He's really got no shot, but who knows.
Well, you want to see some interesting comparisons. Seth Lipsky today in the Post has a really fine article about the race and some of his ideas, and I'm going to go with him. I'm going to go with D. Wayne Lucas. I think Bavazzo is going to win this race. He closed very, very hard into Preakness. As Lipsky pointed out, if that race had been another 20 yards longer, he would have won. So I'm going to go with him. And but as I say, if you want to take a chance and look at an interesting column, he has an interesting column in the Post today about why he's selecting whatever he's doing.
I'll have to read that. Like I said before, I don't like him for a number of reasons, but I do.
You don't like him as a finisher.
I don't like the way I don't like that race. I like I said, he dropped back. He dropped back to 5th at the 8th pole, and all of a sudden he came on, and it was a very weird race. It seemed more of like a sloppy race, and the horses coming back to him. So I'm not really a big fan of him, and so I'll respect that opinion, but you're totally wrong.
Well, that's two of us that are wrong. Doug, you haven't given us a critique yet. Go to it.
No, I said Hofburg. I picked Hofburg. I was thinking of that before we talked tonight, and then Pete convinced me, so I'm going with Hofburg.
There you go. And Justify will probably win by 35 lengths, and then we'll all be.
But I'd like to see Justify. It's fun to see a Triple Crown. But yeah, I agree. I think he's running out of gas. But Pete will be there all weekend with his press pass.
He's 9-2 today. I don't know what he'll be when. I imagine he'll go a little bit closer to the line. Don't you think so, Pete?
I think he'll come down. I think he'll be, 3-1. So I don't think Justify is going to be that kind of crazy favorite like he was in the other races. I mean, obviously there are 9 others going against him, but I think that last race shows some people. Listen, Baffert's putting out all his good signs. He's saying that the horse put on weight. He's saying that the horse is feeling better than ever. They're comparing him with American Pharaoh, who he said was the best horse he ever had. Now he's saying he's acting like American Pharaoh. But there's a lot of that bluster that goes on before races, and I don't buy it. I had a friend actually today that was watching the workouts and said that he did not look very good out there. So, who knows? There's a lot of rumblings out there. Sometimes these things come true, but it's very, very tough for a horse to keep his edge this long.
I'll be very surprised if he doesn't go off over even money. That will surprise me. I agree with you. I think, there's just well, first of all, some of your observations: 20 horses in the Kentucky Derby, as we always talk about with the outer gate. But then the Preakness was so shallow. But now at least there are 10 horses in this race.
Yeah, and that's what it ends up happening, is because so few come back from the Derby into the Preakness, because there almost is no reason to. Back in the day, you got a whole bunch that would come back and run, but the Preakness is really that stepchild right now. No one wants to run in that race. You get a couple of locals running the race, some other horses, and it's not really a big race, and everyone just sits back and waits for the Belmont Stakes. Take some fresh horses, take those extra 3 weeks, well, actually 5 weeks, and then get them prepped for the race. And that's been very successful for a lot of folk. And
plus the fact that the Preakness, the track is so old and so dilapidated, it's liable not to be around next year when the Preakness comes up.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think within a year or two they're going to probably run that race at Laurel. They're kind of doing that, and I don't even how that's going to look, because the big thing with Preakness is the infield and all the people they get, and that is a big deal. You do want to see a good crowd. I mean, you always see that for the Derby and the Preakness, because of the infield presence. You always see, and you get a good feel about it. But the Preakness just doesn't have that same cachet anymore. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that race. It's kind of a dead race. It used to be the Belmont used to be the dead race, and now the Preakness is.
Doug?
Pete the Prophet joining us. We've just got a couple of minutes left. I want to touch on, of course, a little hockey talk as the series, as we do it live on tape tonight. Actually, it's Thursday night, so Caps could wrap it up tonight. But your thoughts, Pete, on the series?
I think the Caps are the better team. I don't think by a lot, but I think they're the better team. That one game where I guess it was a couple of games ago where every break in the book. Vegas was all over them, and every break in the book, saves, posts, weird things happening. That's what makes hockey such a great game. Is that there are big goal swings, a big save or a big play, and then you come back the other way and you score. I think Washington wins it. I though would just love for them to lose tonight and to win it on Sunday.
Win on their home ice. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be special. But I do remember when the Rangers were trying to win it out at home in Game 5. That was the big goose egg, the big choke, and there'll be a lot of pressure on them if they lose, and then they have to come back home. Right. So it depends on how they do. So far, they've kind of matched every test.
Well, Pete, I think it's very much like the NBA final, too. I think it's all over. I can't imagine it. But unfortunately, the Warriors are going to have to win it in Cleveland as opposed to winning it on their home floor. The same thing I think is going to happen. And I agree with you 100% that the differential in talent in the National Hockey League is very, very minimal. And anybody can win almost at any time. If you got the right goaltender, you got a great shot to win. And but I think, to be quite honest with you, I just think that Washington is a little bit, well, I wouldn't even say a little bit. I'd say a little more than a little bit better than Vegas.
I think I agree with you, and I think a lot of people feel kind of the same way, that Vegas took it. They've done very well. It's almost, in a way, it's almost kind of insulting if they win it. You come in, and as it is, they've gone all the way this far, and for some expansion team, and the way they've changed the expansion rules, and then they walk in and they win it when all these teams have tried so hard. And you're right, the how close these teams are to each other. You don't get dynasties anymore. You don't get a team that wins a bunch of cups, and everything changes now. And there are trades, and there's all sorts of things that start to happen out there. And I think it's Washington's year. And then, what happens to the coach? Does he move on? I mean, he's not on the contract. rumors that he might be an Islander coach, and who knows what'll happen out there. But I'm with you. I'm hoping Washington wraps it up tonight.
Yeah, Lou Lamoriello didn't waste much time, right? Got rid of Garth Snow and Doug Waite, the coach, the other day. So you're right. I didn't realize Trotz was up. So Trotz could be the coach. That's interesting.
Yeah, I don't think he had. I don't think there was any doubt that he was getting rid of those guys. I mean, there was just no way he could keep them because the fan base as it is revolting, and I think they also have to send a message to to the best player that he's gonna that they're serious about this stuff. As a matter of fact, they had the Islander mascot in the winner's circle today at Belmont Park with a couple of other people. So they're pushing all the envelopes here for that.
Well, who is that?
Well, Lou's got a terrific background, and even though he's 72 years old, I don't think that makes a bit of difference. I think he's going to be the best 73-year-old addition to the Islanders in a long, long time. And as Doug just pointed out, he made some initial moves yesterday, which were, in everybody's mind, very, very good moves. And I think he can't do anything but improve that team and maybe get them back to playoff contention.
I'm sure that he's changed the culture, and I know that's an overused word, but he's changed the culture, I'm sure, right off the bat for everything he's brought in already. I mean, he doesn't just do, the coaching staff. He starts with administration and scouting, and he's already done his work. So I'm sure that he's going to do exactly the same thing. And, he improved Toronto. So he's improved everybody he's been with, and he'll do the exact same thing here.
Doug? Just got about 2 minutes left, and I just want to ask you, Don, of course, you've been affiliated with the 76ers doing their games for many years. The story today, Bryan Colangelo kind of hanging by a thread for a week or so on that whole Twitter scandal, apparently, but he's out. But didn't really take the full responsibility, but he said his wife had something to do with it. But, he knew nothing about it.
Yeah, that's another one of those roundabout stories. He's almost like a politician now. The politicians always have a roundabout story about how something didn't really happen that happened. So Colangelo's in the same boat now. But the funny thing is, and maybe Pete will like to chime in on this too. I mean, his heritage in an executive position in the NBA. I mean, his whole life has been, how in the world could you get yourself involved in something like this when you have that much experience and you have a team that's about to make the big jump into the top two in the East?
Well, I'm sure you heard his statement that he basically threw his wife under the bus.
Yep.
I mean,
that's right.
That was an unbelievable statement.
That's going to be a happy marriage now.
Yeah. I mean, that can't not have gone over very, very well. And
he actually did that. He actually did that a couple of days ago. I mean, he did it almost. Let's see, today's Thursday. I think the first time he said that was Tuesday, I believe, Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah.
That his wife was the one that was controlling that tweeter, that he didn't have anything to do with it.
Yeah, well, then that's that's very typical of something he would say. I mean, those rumors had gone out that he had more than one Twitter account, and he's got such an ego, and he knows more about basketball than anybody. So he was putting out all his brilliant ideas on Twitter, and I'm glad he got caught and he's gone.
Nobody ever learns from Roseanne.
No, or from long before. There's only one Teflon Don, and that's Donald J. Trump Jr. There you go.
That's right. He
there's
loves that
one
Twitter.
guy that has learned and learned and learned, and the one thing I can see now that our former President Clinton, is selling more books, making more money than anybody in the history of the world.
That's real Teflon, Pete. What old Bill has done. He still says he didn't do anything wrong.
It's unbelievable. It's that they're crucifying everybody else in the world, and this guy just walks right through like he's on a cloud.
Oh well.
He's been suave since the beginning. Nothing you can do about it. You can't teach suave, my friends.
That's it. Well, we're just about out of time. Pete, thanks for, I know we had to move it up. You have a prior engagement tonight, so thanks for moving up your time to join us. And we'll see what happens this weekend. And if Justify wins, we'll do a little piece with you on Monday night. But have a good time at the race.
That's excellent. Thank you very much. And thanks for that delicious press pass. I'll make you guys proud.
Well,
represent us well.
Always nice to have you with us, Pete. It's a pleasure. A lot of fun. I look forward to Monday night. And we all have three different horses, so we'll see who comes out on the top.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to making you eat crow, Don. Thank you.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks, Don. And thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you again real soon.
All right. Bye.